Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of Pulp Kitchen. As you will know from the episode title, and as we talked about in the main episode, we're going to be talking about the strikes that are hitting Hollywood at the moment. Two strikes, the writer's strike and the actor's strike. Now, we are not industry insiders. We do not have our finger closely on the pulse, but we've talked a lot about films that are upcoming in the slate, things that are coming down the line, and the fact is these strikes will have a huge impact on the way films and television shows are released and produced for months to come.
As they have done historically.
This isn't the first time that actors or writers have been on strike, but it is the first time that actors and writers have gone on strike together at the same time since 1960.
We touched on this a little bit in the full episode when we said we were going to be covering this, but we were sort of very much aware that it was happening.
Yeah.
As people who do a film podcast, obviously we're aware of it, we're engaging with it, but we were a little bit apprehensive to comment on it because everything's still evolving. But I feel like this week it was really kicked into a new gear when the actors all went on strike.
Yes.
The Oppenheimer premiere happened, which is obviously, it's not about those actors. Those actors and those writers and directors are fine, but them taking the decision to turn up but then leave out solidarity.
Yeah.
And now everyone's talking about it. It's all over the news. We want to basically but sort of understand why this is happening and what realistically the outcome of this will be on our content.
Because we're thinking, and also thinking about it because of as audience members. That's what we are. We're really just curious to know why the people that we love seeing on screen so much are going on strike, because it's a really interesting issue.
And interestingly, it's about the side of Hollywood you don't really hear about when it comes to, when you say Hollywood writer, you generally think of people at the top of their field, but really being a jobbing writer in Hollywood is a completely different. There's loads of people who are brought on to TV shows to do the nitty gritty, get you from A to B to C of this TV show to get it done. And that pay structure has famously not been great for a long time. But let's still unpack it a little bit.
So we're recording this on Monday the 17th of July, and it's important to say it's an ever-evolving situation.
Yeah.
And by the time you listen to this, things might have changed somewhat. However, this does look like it's going to be in for the long haul. So first of all, this is all specific to America, of course, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, they went on a strike at the beginning of May.
Yeah.
This is very much like the strike that happened in 2007, which we know affected a lot of things. American Office, actually Quantum of Solace. The reason they say that's so butchered is because
Ugly Betty.
Exactly.
Heroes.
So the writers went on strike again. Now, obviously, that affects production, but the studios have a bank of time for shows that are already written and are already shooting that don't need writers anymore. So if you're a writer and you've written the latest season of, I don't know, let's say The Rings of Power, but you decide to go on strike, well, Amazon will say, well, we're already shooting it. We don't need you there. Thanks very much. However, the SAG, which is the Screen Actors Guild of America, SAG-AFTRA for the American Film and Television and Radio Association, I believe, have also now voted to go on strike. And like I said, it's not the first time actors have gone on strike. It is the first time they've gone on strike since 1980, but it's the first time that actors and writers have been on strike together since the early 1960s, when Marilyn Monroe was still in films and Ronald Reagan was the president of the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the president of the Screen Actors Guild.
See how it changed, right?
You got to dip your toe in somewhere.
So I've got an article from across the web. There's great sources in Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and The New York Times about this. But I'm going to give you a basic paragraph just from an article by Matt Stevens in The New York Times, which says, why the actors and writers striking? He says, pay is often at the center of work stoppages, and that is the case here. But the rise of streaming and the challenges created by the pandemic have stressed the studios, many of which are facing financial challenges, as well as actors and writers who are seeking better pay and new protections in a rapidly changing workplace. And that last point is particularly important. The rapidly changing workplace is specific to AI.
Yeah.
And in both fields of work, you have this encroachment of AI on this sector. With writers, it's obviously things like, obviously we've heard news about ChatGPT, but software that can generate text and replace writers. And it's not just it's not about AI coughing out screenplay. It's all the other different kinds of small writing.
I told you,
exactly.
For a long time, a human being is the only person that can do that. But now, if loads of people listening will have tried ChatGPT this year, you would have been slightly scared and blown away, and also very curious about what I can do to shortcut my life with it. But it's all of that busy work. And then with actors, there's already been cases where voice actors have lost work to AI-generated voices, and the software is being used increasingly in films without proper pay and approval from
actors. The article goes on to say both actors and writers have demanded increased residual payments, which is a type of royalty from streaming services. Streaming series typically have far fewer episodes than television series did, and it used to be that if a television series was a hit, actors and writers could count on a long stream of regular residual checks. Repeat viewing, right? Streaming has changed the system in a way that they say has hurt both of them. Both groups also want aggressive guardrails around the use of artificial intelligence to preserve jobs. So that is the reason they're striking. Now, the interesting thing about when the actors voted to go on strike on July 14th is that massively, to an audience's point of view, is even more visible because production, it's almost impossible for productions to continue without your actors. So there are, I know Gladiator 2 is filming at the moment, like just has to shut down because you've lost your actors because they won't cross the picket line. And it's not just that. We actually have a list that SAG sent out and lists all the things that performers or actors cannot do. And it says, blah, 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 lots of boilerplate stuff. And it says, all covered services and performing work under the TV theatrical contracts must be withheld, including, but not limited to, principal on-camera work such as acting, singing, dancing, stunts, piloting on-camera aircraft, puppeteering, performance capture or motion capture work.
You just imagine if they didn't put puppeteering. All the films we just get
principal off-camera work such as ADR looping. I bet AI is probably very big use in ADR. TV trailers and theatrical trailers, voice acting, singing, narration, stunt coordination, and there's also stand-in work, body doubles, wardrobe tests, rehearsals, scanning, interviews and auditions, and also, significantly, promotion and publicity. No press tours, no personal appearances, no interviews, no conventions, no fan expos, no festivals, no for your consideration things,
so
no panels.
Of the studio,
no premieres, no award shows, no junket. It's a complete jam of the entire industrial process of Hollywood and the movie.
There's nothing you could do on a camera.
Nothing you can do. It was very interesting as well because the strike was called about 5 hours after like the Emmy nominations came out. Congratulations to Phil Dunster on his Emmy nomination.
Check out our episode.
Check out our red episode with Phil Dunster from Ted Lasso. But good on Phil for getting nominated for an Emmy. Five hours later, Emmy strikes. They won't be able to do. The Emmys either won't go ahead, or they'll have no actors there, or they'll be empty chaired or something. It's like what a strange time. This also presents a problem for. I'm just thinking now in terms of how it's a headache for the industry. And I think what the actors and the writers are striking about is like perfectly legitimate things, and actually what they are striking about in a way is across many sectors across the world now. What people are striking about, which is the advance of AI and better working conditions, frankly,
and fair pay in a world
exactly
that's more expensive increasingly.
The headache it provides for the industry, though, is that look what's coming up in the next 6 months. Typically, you have Comic-Con, huge event, huge expo for studios.
That's basically presence, everything
massively dwindled now. It's not just that actors won't be there to promote work or writers. It's also that directors then feel, and talent attached to it, feel very conflicted about promoting something that they know that their deep, close colleagues have worked hard on. And a lot of people, Christopher Nolan has come out and said he will not work on a new film. He will not write his new film whilst everyone is striking.
Yeah.
He's not a member of SAG as far as I'm aware, but
and also, like, you think about big announcements that are made based on the assumption that a budget will be this much and writers and actors will be paid this amount to do it. You all of a sudden are like, well, hang on, now that really quirky thing I was thinking of doing on the cheap might not be so profitable. Yes. Maybe I won't announce it.
You've got awards season, typically, as we talked about last year, kicks off in September with the Venice Film Festival. Yeah. And after that, and all the film festivals that come after that, the strike could very easily run into that time period. And therefore, you get just a completely decimated and kind of different award experience. Imagine, take the Emmys, for example. This is when the TV world will be full of for your consideration campaigns, TV appearances, round tables, just won't be happening. Obviously, there is a knock-on effect. If you're a crew member working, I know I spoke to someone recently who's they have a relative who works on some of the Disney Plus shows, and they haven't been working because of the writer's strike. But now, obviously, a lot of crew members won't be working, and obviously the ripple effect. Well, exactly, and it has a knock-on effect, and there is a worry that the top-level executives and studio bods will just try and ride it out until strikers get desperate and dwindle their money, and they will sit on their cash reserves, which is quite worrying. And there's this argument that from the picket line where people have been saying that just the wage gap between the lowest paid worker in a company and their CEOs has magnified. It used to be, the CEO in the 80s used to make 30 times more, and now they're saying he makes 400 times more.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, it's busy, and it is a very interesting time. This is bigger. This is going to have a real knock-on effect, and it's sad because
purely selfishly.
For selfishly, obviously, we all love these things, and like I said, very legitimate reasons that they're striking for. But of course, the wider picture here is that cinema has not recovered post-COVID. After you had a huge period of time when cinemas were closed, when nothing was coming out. And it's been a very precarious situation. In the main episode, we talked about how Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan and Martin Scorsese are all talking about how to save cinema in their own way.
And in our bonus from last week, we're talking about it's back, but in this very different, consolidated... It just looks completely different than what it was before.
And now we have, these strikes happening, and it's like, how is the dust going to settle on all this when all is said and done? What is going to be the aftermath post-COVID of a strike? Here, I'm just going to read out a quick list of TV shows and films that are going to be affected and are affected by the strike. James, The Last of Us Season 2, Euphoria Season 3, Emily in Paris Season 4, Stranger Things Season 5. Now, Stranger Things Season 5, I mean, they pushed it back a year already, so it's going to come out in 2025. That was before the actors' strike was announced, right? My worry is that by the time Stranger Things' final season comes out, they're all going to be like 30 with kids.
They will be.
And they're going to have to digitally de-age them just to make it make sense. White Lotus Season 3, Yellow Jacket Season 3, Deadpool 3, Beetlejuice 2, Spider-Man 4, which actually, that's a bit of a push. It's only been...
Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4?
I was going to say, I don't know why that's been included. They're not shooting. They've had very preliminary talks.
I guess it's being written,
But that's it. You can't have any meetings.
No.
Gladiator 2 and Wicked, the movie. There's just some things that are...
It's basically everything we pretty much were sure was being shot now. It's big. It's all the big studio stuff.
But the crunch time is not now. The crunch time is in 3 months' time when studios are running out. They're looking at their schedules for autumn and they're like, what are we going to show?
In a market that increasingly demands more and more content, constant dizzying, never ending, and all its variations. David Mitchell football meme.
Yes, there you go. James, those are the strikes. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's picking up on other conversations we've had about the way that the industry has changed. And I was scrolling on Twitter and picking out some bits from articles I saw about how the nature of measuring whether or not a show is successful has changed. And for so long in film and TV, all the metrics for how successful something was public. You had box office takings and you had TV ratings. And whether you're a writer yourself or you're part of a union, you could use these metrics to be like, okay, well, if a film gets this amount of success, in your contract we can negotiate that, therefore, if it is to be this good, you would then get a percentage of that. Yeah. We live in this new world where we have shows that are only made for streamers, or we have TV shows that were made for TV, and instead of getting re-aired on a TV network where they're actually live on TV, they get taken onto a streamer. Yeah. And it's very hard to measure how much something is watched on a streamer versus how many people tuned in for that one moment in time on TV. And you've got this environment where streaming services are very opaque about their viewing figures. I think Netflix has even been guilty of not being accurate with their numbers, and they're in this tight spot where they want their numbers to be high because they want people to keep giving them money. They don't want a universally agreed upon metric that everyone can say, well, if my show did that, now whoever wrote Squid Game is entitled to get this much money, versus what if we just paid you for Squid Game, and if Squid Game happens to be Squid Game, great for us, but not so great for you. And then so I I saw a couple of things of some writers who had tweeted some of examples of how they were being paid based on work that they'd done and payouts that they'd got from streamers. One person who wrote an episode of She-Hulk, this is from Cody Ziegler, said that their check from the residuals of that was $396, which
in total.
In total. So you should have had a fee to get to write the episode, and then to get that amount of... That doesn't buy you food for a month in America, right? And say what you like about She-Hulk, a show of that caliber with that much attention, that's just not enough for a writer to practically live on. And then there was Brittany Nichols, who wrote on a TV show called Abbott Elementary, was commenting on this idea of how the next day streaming model has made it so there's no point in re-airing our work. The goal is to get people to sign up for streamers, so they point people there to watch the show instead of showing it again on TV. When they replay an episode on TV, the fee they would get was like $13,000. On streaming, we get paid a flat fee for unlimited plays. That fee is 5.5% of the re-air amount. She went on to confirm that the largest new media bracket streaming residual check she's received was around $700. So like, again, that, and she said she lives in Los Angeles, that doesn't get you rent. No. So again, it's like we have this like media has changed, how we want to consume content has changed. You've said this before about this argument that there's not the same amount of money that there was back in the day. There is no money to go around. But then I think Bob Iger, there's a thing about he makes $70,000 a day.
Yeah.
Which is like,
ridiculous.
Which is insane. Yeah, I think it's like.
Well, I wasn't saying there's less money to go around. I was just saying like the gap has widened. Yeah.
And again, your point, that is true of, unfortunately,
the world over.
The world over, industries over. The gap between the richest and the poorest and how much CEOs make is just increasing. And I think it's on the point of breaking point. We also live in a world that is, because of COVID, because of war, 30% more expensive for basically everything. Yeah. And people are not getting 30% more money at the end of it. And it's very scary. I don't know what that looks like. Where do we get to in 3-4 years? Is it like what we said, where we get fewer high quality shows?
I think you might have that kind of hiccup phase when the strikes are over, like you had with things like Quantum of Solace, where things are kind of stitched back together. You get truncated series. You get series half series. You get series that don't return. You get things that are kind of chopped up. I'm also thinking about the knock-on effect, because it's an international market. Yes, a lot of American talent. These are all, predominantly American actors, but they work across, the UK is a huge production house for movies, international blockbuster movies.
It's one of our great exports.
Absolutely. And a lot of British actors, even like Emily Blunt, as we saw with are SAG members. Yeah. So it's not like they can hop across the pond and work here. No. So actually the shutdown is much wider.
Hollywood has a slice in something you're making. It's
it's
quite rare unless you're really independent at a scale. Like usually Hollywood is usually involved in some sense.
And it's, I think it is one of those things that's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Yeah. I don't see a quick resolution from my limited, reading about it. I'm not, like I said, we're not industry insiders. But it's people are watching this not only because people are watching this and are interested in this because it is, as we're saying, a debate that is happening across sectors, but being played out with the best cast in the world.
Yeah, like in the UK, like we live in London, there are literally strikes several times a month.
Yes.
Whether it's transport strikes, healthcare, it's constant, right? Now actually hard to follow.
But now imagine if you had those strikes, but you had Robert Downey Jr. and Susan Sarandon and Jason Sudeikis were on the picket line. Yeah, I'd watch that strike.
Yeah, and they're reporting from it on the red carpet of their like gorgeous new movie. And it's weird because obviously all the actors are being asked to comment on it, but really it's not about them. Like I'm not worried about Cillian Murphy.
Well, exactly. That's what these actors say. And a lot of these actors are genuinely concerned about their crews. Yeah. And what's going to happen, obviously, if production picks up in 6 months' time, they say a lot of people you can't get back because a lot of people had to quit their jobs and move.
You get a depleted industry.
I wouldn't be surprised if you see the very, very top wealthy actors, directors setting up funds to support striking, to support strikers and support
crews. Like a Nolan situation where, I don't know if I'm saying Nolan does this, but he self-funds his films. Like I think he put £82 million of his own money to make Oppenheimer, just so no one can tell him how to make it. It's like him and his wife make a film. But I can tell you what's going to happen. This is what always happens: is that typically the people at the top aren't going to give up their slice. We will be expected to pay more for our content. The cost
gets passed down to the consumer.
If we do reach there are these new ways to measure the success of writers and actors in a streaming service. Like, let's imagine that all of it becomes transparent and these new agreements in AI they get the servers and throw them in the ocean and everyone's happy and singing. Like, it will just be that your Full fat Netflix is what, like £20 a month now? Basically?
Full fat Netflix. I thought it was like
$7, maybe $20 a month.
Maybe you're right.
$15.99. Like I would expect that within 2-3 years to go up by $10.
Like everything else is.
Like everything else. I
and
don't
that's
see...
also, and that's when the crunch comes with people find also even more going, all right, I need to cut some of these streamers loose.
Now there was a year where you didn't make any content, and it's going to be this breadth, and the content that is going to come out might be crap.
Shit. Yeah.
So it's not good. It's not good for art. No, maybe like if we're being really optimistic, it encourages every platform, distributor, every network to go, hang on, like let's be really careful about what we commission. Let's make sure it is the best thing possible, and the people working on it are fairly paid for the work that they do. And
let's make sure, we work with respect and kindness and appropriateness. But that's an interesting lay of the land.
It'll be interesting to see how it develops.
To watch this carry on, really. But sad. We hope for a resolution. Those are the strikes.
You also listed some really good TV shows and films that are being made. Like, I don't want White Lotus to be...
I mean, James, you can use this as an opportunity to catch up all the stuff we haven't seen.
True.
Yeah,
I've often fantasized about what if the world released nothing for a year. Did we have this conversation?
No, we talked about... I thought I told you this, where
I
said that
I've thought about it too.
Chris Hewitt from Empire Magazine in 2019 was like, oh, I love that. There's so much great stuff out at the moment. But, I just kind of wish... Yeah. There was like a year where the film and TV industry didn't make anything.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. And it was like, you got it, Chris. You got it. For just for the record, we're not saying we're glad that the strike is on so we can catch up on stuff.
No, it's
just a flippant joke.
A very flippant joke.
Yes, that is the strike. If you have any opinions, thoughts about the strike or any insight, perhaps you work in the industry and would like to share some experiences, we'd love to hear your thoughts and your take on it and where you think this will go. And you know how you do that? You email them in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
Some of our listeners are industry, most of them UK, but if you guys are industry and this is affecting you, absolutely, we'd love to hear about your thoughts on it, what conversations you had, where you stand on the whole thing, and how it's affecting your work.
Absolutely, I won't name them in case they don't want to be named, but we have one listener who writes in from LA and works in set and design out there, so they'll be affected by this. That's the strikes. We'll see where it goes.
We will be following it
closely,
intermittently.
I say closely.
I don't think we'll cover it every week.
Oh no, we're not going to cover it every week. We don't have the resources to do that, James. We're not Variety or the Hollywood Reporter. But we shall watch this space very carefully.
Guys, don't forget we post new full episodes of the show every single Wednesday, so don't forget to join us for those. It'll be Barbie and Oppenheimer next episode. Oh yeah, big stuff.
Very excited for that. And as ever, keep an eye on social media. Give us a like, a subscribe, and a follow, and a thumbs up.
Does that mean that sorry, I know we've just done the outro. Does that mean that the promo for Barbie would have stopped now?
Yes.
And Oppenheimer, it's all gone.
Well, they managed to do it. They completed just in time. Those are the Mission Impossible, Barbie, Oppenheimer, last ones through the door.
What else is next this month that's going to be screwed by? Just in terms of purely promotion. So you got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Yep, none of this stuff's...
Gran Turismo, Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Blue Beetle. Equalizer 3.
See you next week.